The blood-red sun bled across the horizon, a daily wound in the sky that refused to heal, casting long, skeletal shadows through the bars of Nay Reeves's cell. 19 days. He had etched each tally mark into the damp stone with a scrap of metal, a silent calendar of his descent into this pit of desperation. The tyrant captors, blue-skinned giants who viewed human physiology with arrogant indifference, hadn't touched his wounds. The angry red line across his ribs burned with every breath, a constant reminder of the border operation that had gone so catastrophically wrong. In stories of captivity, there is often a breaking point, a moment where the spirit snaps. But Dine was forging something else. He worked in the gloom, grinding a salvaged length of chain against the floor. It wasn't magic. It was human defiance sharpened to a lethal edge. Footsteps thundered, heavy, rhythmic, the sound of power. A shadow eclipsed his work. Is this what humans do when caged? Fiddle with scraps? The voice was female, metallic yet curious. Dine looked up to see Erin, the first huntress. 7 feet of azure muscle encased in ornate blue-black armor, 3 eyes burning like burnished copper. She mocked his makeshift flail, her hand resting on a vicious ceremonial blade. She spoke of the arena, of a beast unfed for 10 days, of a death decreed by the overseer. Sleep well, human, she sneered, leaving him with the name of his executioner. The Carvash. The arena was a bowl of noise, a circular pit where the Tyran nobility watched with detached malice. Dini stood on crystalline sand, his chain flail hanging heavy in his hand. When the gates rose, the Carvash emerged, a nightmare of evolution. 6 legs, iridescent armored plates, and 3 serpentine necks, each topped with a gnashing, single-eyed head. The beast charged. Dini moved not like a soldier, but like water, studying the gaps in the creature's armor. He dodged, rolled, and struck. His chain wrapped around the central neck, yanking the beast off balance. But the Carvash was agile. It spun, teeth grazing Day's calf, painting lines of fire on his skin. The crowd fell into a hushed trance. Seeing the coordination of the 3 heads as a weakness, Dane moved erratically, forcing them to split their focus. He struck the central neck again, then the right. When the beast thrashed, tail whipping him across the sand, Dine lay prone, air driven from his lungs. As the monster lunged for the kill, Dine thrust his pipe upward, driving it through the soft jaw of the left head and into the brain. The beast collapsed, a mountain of silent meat. Dine stood, the silence of the arena louder than its roar had ever been. Erin watched him from the podium, her expression unreadable. The human survives, she boomed, but the real test awaits. 3 days later, the spectacle resumed. This time, there was no beast, only Erin, gleaming in full ceremonial armor, facing Danye, who held a crude, unbalanced sword. A true warrior deserves a true opponent, she declared, her voice echoing for the nobles. The fight was brutal. Dine's inferior blade scraped uselessly against her plates. She toyed with him, playing to the bloodthirsty crowd, but arrogance is a chink in any armor. As she raised her arm for a theatrical killing blow, Dane stepped inside her guard. He drove his pommel into the nerve cluster at her shoulder. She crumbled, the thunder of her fall shaking the ground. Dine stood over her, blade poised at her throat. The crowd held its collective breath. In a world governed by blood laws, mercy is the only true heresy. Dane threw the sword aside. He turned his back and walked away. Erin, humiliated and alive, watched him go. That night, the cell door creaked open. Erin stood there, stripped of armor, wearing simple tunics that made her look shockingly real. "You spared me," she said. "I'm repaying a debt." They moved through the bowels of the fortress, slipping into ancient tunnels forgotten by the current regime. "Why?" Dane asked as they descended into the damp dark. "Because," she replied, "perhaps I wanted to see what would happen." They emerged into a harsh alien dawn. The landscape was a fracture of black stone and phosphorescent lichen. They had to reach the rift canyon before the patrols caught them. The descent was treacherous. When the path crumbled beneath Erin, Diane caught her hand, pulling her from the void. "That's twice," she noted, her voice thick with confusion. "I don't keep count," he replied. The floor of the canyon was a twilight world of pale vegetation and a river of liquid crystal, beautiful and caustic. Crossing the slick stepping stones, Donnie slipped. The liquid seared through his boot, burning flesh. The pain was blinding, but Erin was there. She lifted him effortlessly, carrying the human soldier like a child. That night, in a cave illuminated by plants that burned with cold blue fire, the barriers between worlds began to dissolve. They spoke of their wars, realizing they were both soldiers caught in the gears of a machine they didn't build. We define our enemies before we know them, Erin mused, the firelight softening the ridges of her alien crown. But peace is a fleeting luxury. The keening wail of seeker drones shattered the morning. They scrambled through the narrowing canyon, hiding in fissures as machines hunted overhead. They reached the black sand plains just as the elite skimmers caught them. 3 vehicles, 6 warriors. Erin shoved Diani behind her. "I claim the right of challenge," she screamed. Her old comrade Kelvar stepped forward. The duel was uneven. Erin was wounded, exhausted, fighting with a small knife against a heavy blade. When Kelvar moved for the kill, Dean shattered the rules of engagement. He tackled the giant. "We fight together," he yelled, tossing Erin her fallen blade. Back to back, human and tyrant fought as one organism, a whirlwind of desperate violence. They were losing, bleeding out on the black sand when lights flared on the horizon. Not the elite. The exiles. Rough transports surrounded them. The elite retreated, unwilling to engage a swarm. The exile leader, an old scarred warrior, initially refused them sanctuary. "Why should we help?" he demanded. "Because he chose mercy," an elder woman stepped forward. Her skin faded to gray-blue. "He spared her in the arena." The whisper of Nay's choice had traveled faster than his feet. They lived among the exiles 4 weeks. The wound on Dine's foot healed into a silvery scar. The wound in history began to close. Erin and Dine existed in a quiet rhythm, learning each other's languages, becoming something that wasn't quite lovers, but profoundly equals. Then the elder, Erin's grandmother, came to them. "The overseer is dead," she announced. "The fortress is changing. It is time to return." The walk back was not as prisoners, but as envoys. The blood-red banners were gone. The council, tired of endless war, listened as Ney spoke not of conquest, but of the strength it takes to refuse the kill. A year later, Dane stood in the center of what was once the arena. The walls were torn down, replaced by a garden of reconciliation where earth plants entwined with Tyron flora. Erin approached, carrying a bundle. She unwrapped a sword, not a crude slab of iron, but a masterpiece of balance and art. "It is not a weapon of conquest," she said, handing it to him. "It is a symbol. You shattered who I was and rebuilt me better." As the 3 suns set, casting a new kind of light over the garden, Dini realized the truth. The legend wasn't just about the man who refused to kill. It was about the impossible bridge built between 2 souls who refused to be enemies. They stood shoulder to shoulder, watching the stars come out, no longer waiting for the darkness, but welcoming the light.